Hi, my name is Brendan. I'm with Family Piano Co. We're a Roland dealer in Chicagoland, and today we're going to be unboxing and setting up the Roland DP603. It's one of my all-time favorite models, and there are some things about this setup that are a little bit unusual, so I'm going to try talking through some tips as we go through to make your assembly process a lot smoother, and so you don't accidentally scratch things, which is possible with the way the assembly process is on this. So all you really need is something to cut with, like a set of scissors and your favorite medium-sized Phillips screwdriver. It's really all you need. It does help to have a second person, but I'm going to be assembling this by myself. You can totally do it. I expect for your first time doing this, it'll probably take you between 30 and 45 minutes, maybe an hour if you're going to take your time with it, which is fine. I'm going to try getting it done in like 20 to 30 minutes, but we'll see how we go. So on here, I cut this a little bit a minute ago. So there's in top that says, please open this side. So this is the side you want to open. And you're going to want plenty of room to make a mess. So don't try squeezing this into a real tight bedroom or something quite yet. In here, there's going to be a number of things. You've got your instructions. So this is English, and that's it. Everything else is going to be in a different language. So it's 2 pages. And I highly recommend taking a look at the screws, especially for the sizes and what goes where. So we're going to want to make sure this is going to be handy. So I'm going to kind of put this off the side right here so we can reference it if need be. But speaking of screws, one of the first things we're going to do is get them and put them aside in one easy to find place, so we know exactly what's going on with our screws. So I'm going to come on over. Let me show you a couple things on here. We're going to, in this handy dandy bag of all sorts of stuff, we're going to unpack this real quick so we kind of know what we're doing. These are going to be the extenders, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. In here, these are going to be kind of our, we got some screws here for the back, so we've got some actual honest-to-gosh screws, not bolts, so there's 6 of these. And then in here we have the bolts, and these are going to be, all pretty much the same size, which is really, really handy for doing this. So everything's kind of off on the side, and then extenders. So, and then these will be the cable holders here in a little bit. So, I've got them sorted, and we're going to kind of go in and put some of this on. And this is going to be, in some regards, not too dissimilar if you've assembled it before. We're basically going to assemble the stand and then put the digital keyboard on top. That's the basic idea. And there's going to be 4 main parts to the digital, and we're going to leave this part on to help prevent scratching. You'll see why in a second. But on here, it's going to say left. So that's going to be from the perspective of the keyboard if you're playing. So this left side is going to go basically right here. And in a sec, we're going to kind of stand it up. But I'm going to go ahead and take this out. But there's a couple things about this assembly that are going to be a little bit unusual. So this is the right, and so the brackets are on top. And if you notice, we have right here these little slots, and at the very end, we're going to slide the keyboard into place. So I'm just going to point that out now, that we want these little slots facing towards the back. This is going to be where the pedal assembly is going to be, and that's where the keyboard is going to be. So just so you can kind of get a little oriented here. So on here, we're going to do the pedal board in a minute, but first we're going to do the tricky part, and that's where you've got this keyboard right here, and one of the things I love about the DP603 is this giant speaker system, which is just great. So this is awesome. And we're going to want these, 4 of these. For our guy. Now with this, it's going to be a little bit of a juggling act because you kind of got to get this, a couple things. One, we got to kind of slide this down a little bit so we can kind of open up these. Leave this here, not scratching. But we kind of got to get this, if you leave this on the ground, it doesn't really get high enough. So we got to lift it up the stupid little bit there in order to juggle it. So a couple ways of doing it. None of them are particularly graceful, but we basically get this up. And this is one where we're going to want it finger tight, not tight until pretty close to the end, because we're going to want wiggle room and other later stages of the assembly process. So we're gonna, didn't even need to grab my screwdriver quite yet, but we'll get one pretty decently in place. And then the other one over here. And so we'll just kind of get these guys in place, finger tight. Give ourselves a little wiggle room as we're doing this. There we go. And then we're going to do basically the same thing on the other side real quick. So at this point, what we can do is we can stand it up very gently. It can be a little wiggly, but not too bad. Now one thing to point out is these little extenders that go on the bottom here make the base a little bit deeper, but aren't technically necessary. So if you don't want to do this, if you want to get this right up against the wall, you can just skip this step if you want. But if you don't have a good reason to, it's probably not a bad idea just to take the 5 minutes and go ahead and install these. So these are where the 6 screws right here come into play. So there's going to be 3 for each side. And there is definitely a right side and a left side with these. These are not interchangeable. So let me grab the screwdriver real quick. We're basically going to pop these in. Now, once again, this is one where if you have a second person, it's handy-ish, but it's not too bad. Basically, you can just kind of put these in. I like to get pretty decently far in, but enough that there's still wiggle room. Put the other one in, and then when we're done, we are going to want to tighten these all the way up because we're not going to be able to get back to these screws once we put the pedal assembly on, which is going to be kind of the next step. So right now, I'm just going to get these pretty close. All right. So next up, what we're going to try doing is putting on here. This is going to be our pedals. And one of the first things you're going to want to do is go ahead and take this off. These are always handy. And we're going to plug this in just a few minutes. So let's get that ready so we don't have to fish around for it. And then on here, this is kind of the tricky part, is we're going to want to put this on carefully so we don't scratch anything. And this is where the protector comes into play, is we just don't want anything in place. Now, please note, it goes on top of the thing. It doesn't go in front or in back or anything like that. This metal piece goes in the middle here. So you're not going to see any metal. You're just going to see wood. And then with 2 of our remaining 4 bolts, we're just going to kind of go ahead and wiggle this into place. Once again, we want some wiggle room. And get this finger tight right here. And then go ahead on the other side. This is in place. We'll kind of get that packing material out of the way. Put this other screw in place. Do some wiggling so it lines up. And now we've got pretty much all the screws in place that we need. So now we actually use the screwdriver to go ahead and tighten up this pedal assembly. It doesn't really matter what order you tighten all the screws in. We'll go ahead and tighten this up. we've now done the stand assembly part. So if you have a second person, this is ideal. If you can do it by yourself, I'll show you. And this front part is going to be the keyboard. So on here, go ahead, and I'm going to show you a couple things real quick on here. You're going to want to kind of unwrap this, but you see at the back, there's like this bolt that like sticks out. This is going to slide into place. So you really only need one bolt in the front to screw it in, which is why there's 2 bolts left. So I'm going to remove this main part right here so that I don't have a bunch of packing material in where I'm trying to put screws and such. And then this right here is where you're going to plug in headphones and other inputs and stuff here in a second. So you know, there's a little bit of a balancing act right now, but it's not too bad. We're just trying to get majority of packing material out of the place. Leave this so that the lid doesn't flop all over the place. And so you can kind of pick up and walk around with it. And then, you know, you can kind of very carefully put it into place. You'll have a little bit of leeway on each side at the very end. And we're just going to kind of work on sliding this into place. And at this point, just a little bit, get this. That's in place. All right. And that's in place. So it's just, it's kind of a little bit of a fussy process. But it's almost secure. All we really need to do is these last 2 screws. So once again, this is where a second person is handy. Kind of go ahead and hand you stuff so you're not up and down a lot. So what we can do is now we can kind of remove this last part right here. Scissors, and very carefully cut this so we're not cutting our beautiful instrument here. And then we'll kind of open this up like that, and then this can open up here. Bada bing. So you have a beautiful DP603. You kind of finish removing the packing material. A couple final points. We're going to go ahead and get the last packing material up, but we have to plug in the speaker and plug in this pedals. So come on over. On here, you've got kind of an unusual setup here. You can kind of see that there's like a square one and then some kind of other weird shapes. So it's going to basically, I think, let me see, go in there. So it kind of goes a little to the side there. So that's going to be for the speakers. And then we've got the pedal assembly, and you can kind of see that it's all these pins. You don't want to smash that up. You can kind of see right here. You can also kind of see that we're going to want, move it this way. No. There we go. Like any good cable, you got to right, wrong, right, and it actually goes on this thing. And we got the power cord right there. And so basically at this point, you can kind of move the instrument into place and plug it in, and you're good to go. So my name's Brennan with Family Piano Co. We're a retailer in Chicagoland, and we price match the internet, so we have the lowest prices we know of, and we're happy to help you however we can. So feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit our website at familypiano.com. Thanks.